What's happening, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another one of these sit down videos. You guys really seem to like these, so I'm going to be dropping them a lot more often. And just as a whole, I plan to be dropping a lot more content way more consistently because I've been active on IG, on TikTok, and of course in the live stream group, but my upload schedule on YouTube is a bit all over the place. So I'd like to make that a lot more consistent, right? Now, I could sit here and say that and just be like every other YouTuber who says that and is like, oh, guys, I'm really going to try. Daily videos starting tomorrow. And they make all these huge announcements, all these huge promises. And then what happens? They stick to it for a couple days. And by next week, they're already inconsistent with the schedule. Now, why does this happen? Well, it happens this way for the same reason anything happens inconsistently. It's because whatever the case, whatever ended up happening between the time they made that announcement and when they failed to follow through, they did not have a process. They did not have an efficient process to get a consistent outcome. Guys, in business, in life, in sports, in trading, consistent outcomes come from consistent systems and consistent processes, right? Same inputs, same outputs. It's not rocket science. And currently, I'm going through this as well. I'm building out a system. I'm building out a process that's going to give me a consistent outcome. So what does that look like? Well, the first thing I do every time I make a video is I have to start with the script, right? It's the easiest thing to do. It also allows you to plan what you're going to talk about, what examples you're going to show, and it's also the foundation of everything else that's to come, right? You don't know what you're going to say until you write it down on the camera. So if I started with the filming process first and I did the scripting process after, it wouldn't make any sense. And then diving a layer deeper within the scripting process, there's also a process, right? Where do you start? Do you start with the hook? Do you start with the outro? Do you go look at other videos to get some inspiration first? Like, where does the process begin? And what are the exact steps to lead to that outcome? And this all has to be consistent because when it's not, that's when your videos start coming out different every time. Maybe one video you spend a really good amount of time scripting, but because you don't have a process, the next video you just wing the script. So now you have two videos out there, but one looks really good and they can tell you worked on it and tell you put quality into it, and one looks very shitty. So what's the moral of the story here? If you do not have a consistent process, you're going to get inconsistent outcomes. And this is true in any aspect of business, whether it's sales calls, whether it's email marketing, whether it's running ads, right? You're not going to use a different ad budget every single time for every single different campaign. You have a specific system, a specific set of rules, a specific set of parameters that allow the outcome to remain consistent over a long period of time, over many business cycles. And the same thing applies to trading, guys, right? Every trader is looking for the same outcome, and that's the outcome of consistency. They want to be able to pass challenges, take payouts, and do so over and over and over again so you can make a living, so you can actually rely on this and have peace of mind that it's going to continue to pay you and continue to provide for you moving forward. But what these traders also fail to understand, and what I failed to understand as a beginner trader, and even after getting my first couple payouts, it still took me a bit of time to understand that it's all good and all that I got the outcome once, but if I didn't have a repeatable process, if I didn't have a way to repeat that 100 times over, all I had was a lucky period of time where I just happened to catch a lick in the market. And if you've passed evals in the past, if you've made a payout in the past, if you've even gotten close to a payout in the past, but you haven't been able to reproduce that result, it's probably because you got there using a process that you are not following consistently. Or maybe you even got there using no process at all. So the main thing to remember is that consistent process equals consistent results. So you want to make sure everything down from your morning routine, what time you're showing up to the market. I can't tell you how many people go and try to trade Asia session today, London session tomorrow, New York session, all three on Thursday, and then it's just all over the place, and they can never even repeat what they just did because they don't even remember. They don't even remember what day they traded what entry they took, what time they took that entry. So how are they ever going to repeat that outcome? Well, they're not going to be able to repeat it. And most of them aren't even tracking this either. So even if they tried to, they can't even go back and look at exactly what candle they took. What was the 1 minute looking like? What was the 4 hour looking like? They have no fucking clue. So the first step is just to show up to the market at the same time every single day consistently. What that's going to allow you to do, it's going to allow you to master one session. Every session moves slightly differently and has slightly different characteristics. Some are more volatile, some are more bound for consolidation, some of them move faster, some of them move slower, and there's different profiles for each one of these sessions. And within each of these sessions, there are so many different ways that each of these profiles can play out that if you're not focused on one, if you're not watching the same one every single day, seeing all the different intricacies, you are going to miss things. And it is very difficult, especially as a beginner, if you have not even mastered one session, to master multiple sessions. It's definitely something that you can build to over time once you become experienced, but even then, there might not even be a need to master another session because you're already happy with the money that you're making. So first and foremost, you want to keep that variable consistent. This is like a science experiment. And I dropped out of high school, so I don't really remember too much about science, but from what I remember, there's a controlled variable and then there's a changing variable. And what is the controlled variable? The controlled variable is something that stays the same throughout the whole entire experiment, no matter what. And then this variable can change. So this variable is the market. The market's always changing, the market's always moving. This is your strategy. The variable stays consistent and you keep it that way for a long period of time because you are collecting data on that variable. So if this variable remains the same while this variable is changing, does the outcome continue to produce results? Well, you don't know until you keep this variable the same. The problem is a lot of you guys go into the market and instead of following the strategy, instead of keeping the variables the same, you're right in there chasing another setup or another setup that you thought was going to do that or thought was going to do this. Or maybe you didn't even wait for a setup at all and you just jumped in, FOMO'd in, and then you got smacked by the market. And then you know what happens then. But that's not even the real issue. The real issue is that you either took the loss or maybe you even got lucky and took a win. But the issue then is you do not have any information to work with. And you're not going to learn anything because you didn't plan that setup. You didn't follow a process. You didn't follow a system. You simply jumped in out of emotion. And that's not something you can build statistical data around. So keep the control variable the controlled variable. If you're going to stick to a ICT based model, don't be in there trading retail concepts the next day. And if you're trading retail concepts, don't be in there trying to play around with smart money concepts at the same exact time. It's not that either one doesn't work or does work. It's that you will never be able to even tell which one gives you a better edge until you have executed it consistently enough to have a bunch of data to actually go off of. So that is the process, guys. It is a data collection process. It is just a science experiment, right? Any strategy you test, any approach, any trading method, go into it with the intention of running a science experiment. Stick to those rules for at least 2+ weeks. And at the end of the experiment, you can look over the data and come to a scientific conclusion. And what is that conclusion? Either it's working and the stats are good, you're profitable, so you can keep doing what you're doing, or you change up one or two things. Maybe you notice your stop loss keeps getting wicked out. So next time, instead of having the stop loss at this many points, maybe it's a few points extra. Cool. Now you keep that the same. Run it for another 2 weeks. Overview the results. Did it help? Did it not help? Are you more profitable? Are you less profitable? And so on and so forth. And this is the same in business. You make small adjustments very, very slowly, and then you let the data play out. You overview the data, and then you make a decision. You don't go in there one day using one model, and just because you took one loss, now you're switching to the next one, and then you trade that one, and you take a win, but it's not satisfied, so you go in and try to trade your old strategy again. You cannot be fucking with your data, guys. You got to keep the data consistent. You got to keep the data clean so that you can actually have proper information that's going to allow you to improve your trading. So this is how you have to be thinking, guys. You have to be thinking in the brain of the scientist, and you have to be thinking in terms of performance and process. If you cannot stick to the same process for 2 freaking weeks, win, lose, or draw, you're never going to be able to have long-term success in trading because consistent results only come from consistent processes. But honestly, the problem is that a lot of people want instant gratification, right? You want to catch that 1 win or 2 wins 2 days in a row, and you want the immediate validation that this is the model for you, this is the strategy, the end all be all, you never have to do anything else, you're never going to lose. And that's the wrong attitude to have, guys, because as a professional trader, as a full-time trader, there are going to be many days where you do lose. There are going to be many times where you go long periods of time where you're just simply hovering, waiting for the next home run, waiting for the next A-plus setup. And during those times, you're not going to have that instant gratification. It's going to be very, very delayed gratification, and you're going to have to battle that instinctive nature to go in there and make stupid decisions. So stop looking for the instant gratification. Stop seeing it from day to day, or what happens this day affects your mood, affects this or that, and start seeing this in terms of like 2-week experiments. Don't give a fuck if you're going to make money. Don't give a fuck if you're going to blow the account, keep the account, whatever. Stick to the same process and see what happens as a byproduct. And this is the only way to achieve consistency and to detach from the money itself. And then I also kind of relate it to dieting, right? You have all of these type of diets, and every diet is kind of like a strategy, right? You got the keto diet, you got the vegan diet, you got this, you got that, and everybody goes out there trying to lose weight with the new fad, right? But they go out there, they try keto for a week, and they don't even eat in a calorie deficit. They just try keto for a week, and you really need 3 weeks to see results, but they just try it out for a week, and it doesn't work because they're lazy, and they say that keto is a scam, it doesn't work, so next week I'm going vegan. And then they go vegan, and then it still doesn't work because they still don't know what they're doing. They try it out for 2 weeks this time because maybe they'll see it through a little bit more, but that's still not long enough to even tell, so they give up again, and they jump from diet to diet, fad to fad, bow flex to perfect push-up to perfect pull-up, never seeing any results. Why? Because they are not consistent with one approach long enough to even see the difference. And this is the same in trading, guys. They go from retail to indicators to bots, and now I'm ICT today, I'm this tomorrow, and they end up jumbling it so much that they don't even know why they did this in the first place. When what they really could have done was just stuck to one approach, track that, and if something didn't work, make an adjustment. Why didn't it work? Were you not eating in a calorie deficit? Were you not actually exercising? Were you eating too much processed meats instead of natural meats? And then make a small adjustment and then continue running the experiment. Same thing with trading, guys. So make sure that's consistent. Make sure your analysis process is consistent. You're marking out the same levels every day. You're looking for the same setup every day, and you have the same risk management rules and the same stop loss, same TP, and make sure you follow the same rules in terms of how many losses can you take? What's the max amount you're allowed to lose for the day? What do you scale down to after you take a loss, or do you just keep your risk the same? All of these things matter, guys. And I can't tell you how many times I've started working with a student and they don't even know exactly where their stop loss is supposed to be. They don't even know what structure is supposed to protect it. They don't know what TP they're supposed to be aiming for. They're just simply going off of patterns. So your strategy should be very systematic, same levels you're marking out, same setup you're looking for, and the same entry and exit plan every single time. Even down to when you move your stop to break even should be systematic and should be written down somewhere on a piece of paper. And then other than that, guys, make sure your journaling process is consistent, right? Make sure you're tracking the same data. If you need help journaling, you can go and view my journaling video. But make sure you're tracking your data properly so you can actually review and refine it properly. Just like in a science experiment, you have to write down what happened. You have to track the outcome on a day-to-day basis. Otherwise, when you look back at the data, you won't even be able to make a scientific conclusion. So make sure you're tracking the data consistently as well. And if all those things are kept in check, you should now have a very solid idea of what your actual strategy is. Now go out there for 2 weeks at least, follow it to the T, not one mess up, and prioritize following this. This should be number 1 on your goals list. Making money should be all the way down here. Passing challenges, getting payouts should be all the way down here. Following your scientific process, running your experiment should be all the way up here, and keeping those controlled variables controlled. And guys, I can't even tell you how much time this would have saved me at the beginning and how much of a headache this would have saved me later down the road. And a lot of you guys who are getting to your first payouts are starting to feel the real anxiety of like what it's like to not have a process and to have the pressure to repeat an outcome. Because you may not think of this as important if you haven't got a payout yet. You're just like, yeah, shut up, bro. Let me just gamble to my first payout and then we'll figure it out from there. Well, you can do that, but then you got to come back to this video when you start feeling the anxiety of having to repeat those results, but you have no idea how to. So when that happens, feel free to come back to this video. You guys are like me. You got to learn the hard way. You got to bump your head against the wall. You got to touch the fire to know that it burns. Those of you who are smarter than I was and smarter than some of the stubborn people here, go out and apply this advice, and it's going to save you fucking years. Other than that, guys, take care, have a blessed day, and we will see you in the next video.